Alright boys, you already know, I'm back from the lab, and this time, I have mixed feelings about this deck. I think the gameplay is kinda boring. This was the most expensive budget deck I've built so far. What's up guys, post-editing hero here. It turns out while I was editing this video, a structure deck released for Raid Raptors, making it the cheapest budget deck that I've gone over in the series. You only need 2 of the structure deck. You could also get away with 1 structure deck and rolling for the rest of it in a secret pack. Anyway, I say that the deck is expensive several times in the video. Just ignore that. Things have changed obviously. And since I cut this out from later in the video, might as well do it here too. Like and subscribe for this cool ass edit. Look how close I am to 100. Anyway, back to the video. I don't think this deck does all that much, but it kind of grew on me. Like, if I could describe this deck in a meme, it would be... So Raid Raptors are a fairly simple Xyz deck. You take your 2 level 4 small burbs to Xyz summon into a bigger burb. Then you use monster effects and rank up spells to summon the biggest of burbs. They kind of just sit there menacing like... because your opponent can't interact with them. The only way your opponent can regain air superiority is by swinging over them with a monster with high enough attack or by kaijuing them, which most people don't really play. I think this deck was too simple for me, but I can't lie, watching my opponents desperately try to stop the mega burb that they can't interact with was truly hilarious. I definitely recommend this deck to beginners because it has a fairly simple combo line, but I think the power is on the lower end of the decks that I've gone over so far, and definitely lower for the deck that I'm covering in next video. I felt like it was too easy to stop this deck from trying to do what it's supposed to do, but if you could manage to get it to work, you're in for a funny little time. Well, if, and this is a big if, your opponent has no idea what your burbs do. This deck was also a bit more on the expensive side, as this was the first budget that I had a hard time completing. So alright, let's get in the Raptor core, guys. This profile might take a little bit longer because the deck actually has a metric ton of main deck monsters. So starting off with Bloom Vulture. If you just control a face-up winged beast monster, which is pretty much your entire deck, you can special summon this card and a Raid Raptor monster from your hand. With this being another Xyz deck and all, getting 2 bodies on the board to start your combo is essential, which is why I play this at 3. It has a second effect of if you control no monsters, you can target 2 level 4 lower monsters and special summon them, including this card. The next card is Strange Lanius. If you control a dark monster, special summon this card from your hand, but you're locked into dark monsters. In this case, this is literally 100% of your deck, so this doesn't matter at all. It has the additional effect of if you control an Xyz monster with a dark Xyz attached as a material, target a Raid Raptor in your grave and special summon it from the grave. So this card can special summon itself, and if you meet the requirements, it has the ability to special summon a Raid Raptor from grave, which is pretty great. I definitely play this at 3. Alright, next up is Fuzzy Lanius. This is a favorite of mine, but I only play this at 2, so if you control a Raid Raptor other than itself, special summon it. Pretty simple, but it also has an additional simple effect of if it's sent to the grave, add another one to the hand, so you can do a lot of funny little things with this card, and there's a way to shuffle them back in the deck, so this card is just really fun to play with. Alright, so now I'm going into the off-brand Raid Raptors that summon themselves real quick, then we'll swap back. But first up is Smorg, Bird of Perfection. This card has a lot of text, but the only thing that matters is that when you summon a winged beast, which is most of your deck, you can summon this from hand. Then if it's on the field, it becomes a dark and a wind monster. That's all you need to know. So obviously a dark level 4 that summons itself, I gotta play this at 3. The next card is Raider's Wing. You can detach a material from a dark Xyz you control to summon it. It's not that good of a starter, which is why I play this at 1, but it does have an additional effect of if this is attached to a dark Xyz, the Xyz monster can't be targeted. So this protects your plays, which is pretty nice. So now I'm going to pivot over to the normal summons and the cards that you search. So first is probably one of the most important cards here is Tribute Lanius. You can send a Raid Raptor from your deck to grave. In most cases this is going to be Mimicry, which we'll get into next. But Tribute Lanius has a second effect. During main phase 2, and this card destroys a monster by battle, you can add a rank up spell from your deck to your hand. Not gonna lie, this never really came up. I also didn't know this even existed until I made this video, but hey, I sort of see the use case of this. Going second, if you can even get this far to destroy a monster, I can see how it can be pretty good. So earlier I just said that you probably want to dump Mimicry. Mimicry states during main phase 1 and this card is in the grave, you can banish it to add a Raid Raptor card from your deck. In most cases this is going to be the spell Raid Raptor's Roost, which we'll talk about a little bit later when we get into spells and traps. It has another effect of if this is on the field, you can have all Raid Raptors gain a level, which is okay, as it can skip a level. Then you can make a rank 5 Xyz instead of making a rank 4. But for me personally, I never really use this effect. Next normal summon is Noir Lanius. You can activate this to add a Raid Raptor with a different level to your hand, which in this case you have two options, Heal Eagle and Pain Lanius. We'll get what those cards do in a second, but of course Noir has a graveyard effect. In the grave, you can banish this to change all Raid Raptors to either increase their level by 1 or decrease their level by 1, which actually came up a few times. So next up is Pain Lanius. Basically, in the hand, you can target a Raid Raptor and take damage equal to its attack or defense, depending on which one's lower. Then it special summons itself and then copies the level of whatever Raid Raptor you targeted, which is pretty good if you need to extend. But something crazy that I'm just now reading for the first time. You can only Xyz into Winged Beast with this card, so this stops you going into Raider's Night, which is the rank 4 Xyz that gets your combo going, but we'll talk about that card a little bit later. Next is Heal Eagle. When this is in your hand, as long as you control a Raid Raptor, you can special summon this. It's level 3, so you can change it with Noir in some cases, or you can use it to make a Wise Tricks, which we'll talk about later. But when this card is in your grave, you can add a Raid Raptor spell or trap to your hand. So this is really good for recycling, or good for grinding as well. So that actually wraps up all the main deck monsters, so let's get into the spells and traps, which most of these are rank ups because that's how you get into your fat boss monsters in this deck. So first up is Revolution Force. I'm starting with this one because it's the easiest to comprehend. Target a Raid Raptor Xyz you control, rank it up by 1 level. So if you have a rank 4 Xyz, you can rank it up to rank 5. Literally just plop it on top. It has a secondary effect that I'm also literally just reading for the first time. During your opponent's turn, if they control an Xyz with no materials, you can target it and steal it and summon a Raid Raptor that's a rank higher on top of it, which is kind of funny, but never really came up. So that's why I'm just now learning about this. Next rank up spell is Skip Force. It does the exact same thing as Revolution, but this time you can skip 2 levels now. Wow. I usually use this to go from 5 to 7 because the rank 5 searches this card. This also has a second effect of during the main phase, after this card was sent to the grave, you can banish this and then summon a Raid Raptor in your grave. This one actually, I remember winning me a duel, so although this one's also situational, still I'm biased and like this one. Next rank up is Raid Raptor's Force. This usually gets you to your main boss monster. During your main phase or your battle phase, you can target 2 or more Raid Raptor Xyz that you control or in your graveyard and then special summon a Raid Raptor equal to the combined ranks of the chosen cards. So usually a Force Strix on the field plus Raider's Night in the grave and then Brave Strix in the grave equals rank 13 Rising Rebellion, which we'll talk about later as well. The last rank up spell I'm playing is Phantom Knight's rank up Magic Force, which this rank up you can banish dark monsters from your grave and then target a dark Xyz, then rank that monster up from the amount of banished cards. Note this locks you into Xyz monsters for the rest of the duel, preventing you from going into any Wise Tricks plays. You can mess up your combo if you're trying to go first with this, so just keep that in mind. For the last spell in the deck, we have Raid Raptor's Roost. If you special summon a Raid Raptor from your extra deck, add a Raid Raptor trap or spell to your hand. So your options are these 2 traps, which we'll go over next, and Raid Raptor's Force. Roost has a second effect where you can shuffle Raid Raptor cards that are banished or in your graveyard to draw a card, which is pretty neat. So that's it for the spells, so let's get into the traps. First is Raid Raptor Readiness. It says this turn Raid Raptors you control can't be destroyed by battle, which is kinda situational but still kinda useful. It has a second effect of if you have a Raid Raptor monster in your graveyard, banishes from your grave and then you take no battle damage, which is kinda bad. If you're using this, you're probably losing and hoping to God you top deck something useful next turn. Alright, so next up is Glorious Bright. If you control a Raid Raptor monster, you can target one face-up monster your opponent controls and negate it. But if you control a Raid Raptor Xyz, you can target one face-up card on the field and negate it. So like, let's say hypothetically, your opponent Raigekis you. If you have a Raid Raptor Xyz on the field, you can actually negate it to stop your board from getting wiped. It has the secondary effect of you can banish this card from your graveyard, then target a Raid Raptor monster that's banished, and then add it back to your graveyard. Not gonna lie, this didn't come up at all, but it's there if you need it. Anyway, that's it for the main deck, so let's get into the extra deck. First up, we have Forstrix. This is the basic Z's you'll be making most of the time. It gains 500 attack and defense for each winged beast you control, which Raid Raptors spam the board with monsters, so this card can get pretty chonky. It also has the effect of once per turn you can detach to add a level 4 Darkwing Beast, which is literally 98% of your main deck, which is pretty cool. You'll usually use it for follow-ups or extenders. Next is Raider's Knight. Basically, you detach a material from this, rank it up into a rank 5 monster. Pretty easy to understand. In this case, you'll be ranking it up to Brastrix, which this card does a few things. The main thing you'll use it for is detaching a material to add a rank up spell, which will most likely be Skip Force. Or you could detach to add a Raid Raptor spell or trap to your hand, which would be one of the traps from earlier. Lastly, it has a passive effect, I guess, but if it's attached to a Raid Raptor Xyz, it gains 100 attack per rank. So usually this is going to be on Rising Rebellion. That card is rank 13, so that's additional 1300 attack, and that would bring Rising Rebellion up to 5300, which is pretty insane and hard to swing over. So next Xyz is Arsenal Falcon. You detach a material from this to special summon a level 4 winged beast. In my case, it was going to be Tribute Lanius. I use it to dump Roost. If not, then you probably want something to extend your combos like Noir or Fuzzy. It has a second effect of if it goes to the grave while a Raid Raptor monster is attached to it as a material, you can special summon a Raid Raptor Xyz and use Arsenal as a material for it. This could be any Raid Raptor in your deck, but in most cases you'll be summoning Ultimate Falcon, which we'll get into in just a second. Arsenal had a third effect that I had no idea about, but you can attack up to the number of Raid Raptors attached to this, which I'm not gonna lie, that really never came up, but I guess it's cool. So next up, I just mentioned Ultimate Falcon. This is one of the main boss monsters in the deck. In the first line, you can see why this card is so oppressive. Unaffected by card effects, so this card is extremely difficult to get rid of. And note, this also applies to your own card effects. It has another effect of detaching a material and your opponent's monsters lose 1000 attack, as well as they can't activate cards for the rest of the turn, which is okay if you're going first. In most cases, if you get to this point, going turn 1, your opponent probably blew all their effects to try and stop you to get here, so you usually don't really activate this, honestly. But if you're going second, this can stop like destruction effects, graveyard effects. It's just way more useful. It has a final effect of if it's attached with a Raid Raptor monster, which is usually Arsenal Falcon, and you didn't use it to detach for the previous effect. During the end phase, your opponent's monsters lose 1000 attack, and if they have no monsters, they take 1000 damage, which is okay. The attack of the monsters are so high in this deck that it doesn't really matter too much with life point damage. Now it's time for the other final boss monster, Rising Rebellion Falcon. This card is also unaffected by card effects. So this card's effects is kind of interesting. If Rising Rebellion has 3 or more Raid Raptor Xyz attached to it, which should be the case if you summoned it with Raid Raptor's Force, you can destroy all cards your opponent controls. If there are monsters, your opponent takes damage equal to the attack of the monster, which is pretty insane. It has a final effect of detach 3 materials to target a Raid Raptor in the grave and copy its effect, which really never came up. So that's it for the main Xyz monsters that you'll be summoning. Here are a few miscellaneous ones. So first one is Revolution Falcon. You can attach a material, and this card can attack all your opponent's cards at once, which in Yu-Gi-Oh isn't literal, it just means it can make multiple attacks. The neat part is the next effect, that if this card battles a special summon monster, you can make its attack 0. It has a final effect that if this card has a Raid Raid Raptor Z's attached, you can target a monster your opponent controls and destroy it, and they take damage equal to half of the attack, which is okay. So you have this card as an option if you need another way to OTK. Next is Revolution Falcon Air Raid. The interesting thing about this card is that if you control a level 5 or lower Raid Raptor, you can discard a rank up spell to make this. On summon, you can target a monster your opponent controls, destroy it, and they take damage equal to that monster's attack. Then, if this card is sent to the grave, you can special summon a normal Revolution Falcon and use this as a material. This card is pretty niche and didn't see that much play, but the effects aren't too bad for what the deck is trying to do. The final Xyz is Satellite Cannon Falcon. If this card summoned using Raid Raptor monsters, which should be all the time, destroy all spell and traps your opponent controls, and your opponent can't respond to this effect, which this is great for going against those annoying stun floodgate decks. I actually really like this effect. It has an additional quick effect of detaching a material, target a monster your opponent controls, and it loses 800 attack per Raid Raptor monster in your grave, which actually adds up to a lot. So the last card in the extra deck is Strix. If you link summon this, special summon a level 4 Darkwing monster, but its effects are negated. This can help you extend, and if you Xyz summon a Raid Raptor, you can set a rank up spell from your deck. If it's quick effect, you can actually activate it that turn. You can do a lot of things with this card like extend or force effects, but I usually just end up setting a Quickplay at the end of my turn. So that completes the deck profile. Let's move on to the deck list. I didn't have any achievements with this deck, so no Master Duel meta linked for this deck in particular, but here's what I've been running. This deck was kind of weird to build because some of the builds of Raid Raptors don't run max C. Due to the lack of hand traps, this deck is mostly pure gas. The only thing I want to talk about is the fact that I'm playing 3 Revolution Force. I think you'll be okay with 1 because it's useful if you draw into it, but if you draw more than 1, then you're kind of just bricked. My deck is only like this because I've been upgrading from a budget build I had originally built. The staples are a little bit different from other videos as I've been able to acquire more of them, but let's take a look at what I've been playing. 2 Max C, because semi-limit, 3 Ash Blossom, standard for every deck, 2 Called By, standard, 2 Imperms because I don't have a third, 1 Crossout. I was super happy to add this to my deck to stop Max C, and here's where the fun begins. So I play 1 Fuelos to replace the 3rd Max C, and I have another Crossout target because this deck gets absolutely annihilated by Max C and Max C adjacent cards. The next interesting thing I've added is evenly matched because if your opponent sets up their board completely and this deck is playing a few hand traps, so it tends to happen a lot, it can be pretty much impossible to establish your board. So with this, I can confirm if this resolves, the match is definitely even. This was a great addition to the deck because during my live stream I was playing this version of the deck titled Honestly How Did This Deck Even Work. I ranked up about 2 to 3 times and I only lost when I went against Horizion or Malice, or if I completely just bricked, which isn't bad for a budget deck. This stream I played 19 games and lost 7, so I was at about a 63% win rate. And then those 5 losses were from Horizion and Malice, which come on, those decks are ridiculous. So anyway, there are a ton of people that actually stopped by for the live stream on the YouTube side based on the analytics, so thank you for that. Anyway, the last staple in here in the extra deck, which is Little Knight. She's okay in this deck and is very situational. I think if you make this, you probably already lost, honestly. I think this could be swapped out for a Typhon, which could be a little bit better, but as a last resort, you could also try Final Fortress, which I never ended up putting in this deck because the attack of the boss monsters are already so high with burn effects, so extra attacks don't really do anything most of the time. You also have Roost to move your banished Raid Raptors back into the deck, so that effect was kind of redundant as well. So moving on to the optimized version of the build, this script was made in August 2025, so your meta may vary. I held on to the script for the salad video for 6 months and those builds shifted a lot. But anyway, so there's a few interesting things about this build I want to say. Like I mentioned before, in the build that I'm playing, Revolution Force is down to 1 for less bricks and more room for hand traps. This is a hand trap centric build, so this deck plays a few more cards. So I'm playing 3 droplets, which actually go super hard in this deck due to the synergy. If you're going second, you have full combo ready to go. If you have droplet, then you send a Bloom Vulture and then another Raid Raptor. You can send Fuzzy, and then if you send Fuzzy, you can search Fuzzy, so drawing 2 of them is actually a little bit useful. You could send Mimicry to search, or you could send Raid Raptor's Wing for its second effect. There's a lot that you can do with droplets. Then you can also send Fulos if you're going first, so it's just not like sitting there like a brick. I really like droplets in this deck. I'm playing 3 Imperm because I was finally able to afford a full set on this account, and it synergizes with the next staple, Dominus Impulse. This card is an actual hand trap that can stop special summons, and if there's already a trap in the grave, you can destroy the card that activated as well, which is really good. This card, as well as Purge, have a restriction of you can't activate certain attributes for the rest of the duel. This kills your Max C and your Roach-like jellyfish, so just make sure you use those before you activate this. But other than that, the rest of your deck is dark, so Impulse goes pretty hard in this deck. Final note is for the optimized build, I cut Readiness because it's a little weak in this deck. If this card ever did come up, it was because I usually bricked and needed to stall for a turn, which was meh. Only played this because the original build was a budget build, but now this card could just be another hand trap. Alright boys, you know what time it is. It's time for the replay breakdowns. These replays, I was hovering around high gold and low plat, and at this point, if you've seen the other 2 videos with the replay breakdowns, you're probably like, so like, why don't you try to hit master or at least diamond? The answer is hell nah, bruh. It's not that I don't think I can't get to masters with these decks. If I was playing an optimal version, I think the hardest part would probably be climbing out of diamond. But I have 2 accounts. My alt account is for experimenting with other decks that I don't normally play, and my main account is for meta slave grinding. I'm not trying to do any masochist challenges here, and I care about my mental health, so hopefully it's not a problem if the replays are just in lower ranks. I'm just trying to be transparent about that. I'm not trying to hype any of these decks up. All these videos have been my honest opinions and just my experience playing these decks. So with that out of the way, let's get into the replays. First up is the best archetype to ever hit the game, Tearlaments. And let me tell you, I tear up every time I see this godforsaken deck, but not today. So this hand is kind of bad. I died at the slightest interruption, like I mean a gust of wind could probably take me out. But on God, we're about to cook. I start off by normal summoning Tribute and then using the effect to send Fuzzy. Fuzzy then activates to search another Fuzzy. This way I can get 2 level 4s on the board. I then, no nonsense, go straight into Raider's Knight, where I then activate him to rank up 1 and go into Brave Strix. Brave Strix gets added, and then I use it to go into my Arsenal Falcon. I then use Arsenal effect to go into Noir. When Arsenal's effect went off, I knew I was in a pretty okay spot because Ultimate is already annoying to deal with, and I can turn off my opponent's effects if I suspect they had anything. So then I use Noir's effect to search Pain. I then immediately special summon it for the rest of my combo as well as heal. So next I link into Y-Strix and 2 effects go off. Arsenal activates to summon Ultimate Falcon. Strix activates to set Raid Raptors Force. Next I go into 4 Strix because I need to get into Rising Rebellion. I activate it to search Strangle. I then activate it to resummon Fuzzy and then go into another Strix. I activate Strix, add Bloom Vulture, and that's the end of my turn. During the end phase, my opponent burns for 1000 because Ultimate has a material. I set Glorious Bright, and here's what I can do. So I can negate a face-up card with Glorious Bright. I can activate Rising Rebellion to summon Rebellion Falcon and blow up my opponent's entire board. That would activate Strix to set Magic Force, and if I have 2 Raid Raptors in grave, I can make an air raid to pop a monster and burn my opponent. Or if I have 4 Raid Raptors in my grave, I could make Satellite Cannon and destroy my opponent's back row. The 2 Ash Blossoms are just a happy little accident. So my opponent starts by activating Tract, and I'm like, nah, that's getting ass blasted. So then my opponent activates Birth, and I'm like, great, cash Tira. Then immediately afterwards, he activates Tearlaments Grief, and I'm like, oh, hell nah. So that's getting negated. So then he activates Shireen from hand, and I'm like, okay, so you think you're lucky, punk. And proceeds to gamble, and then he mills a Scream. It activates, he adds Crime, which is no big deal since he sent Lacrima with Shireen's effect, and then milled an Engraver. He uses Engraver's effect to summon itself. He then turns it into a Requiem. He activates it and resummons Lacrima. At this point, I'm like, oh, I'm sure he's going to go into a sequence. But then he goes into a Dagaris, and I'm like, hey everybody, this guy's trying to unbrick himself. So then I simply Rising Rebellion, he can't activate it, and that's GG. This next duel is against the current best deck in the game, Malice. The thing is, I think this guy was on an alt account because his deck list was questionable and missing cards in the extra deck.
What the fuck is this piece of...
Regardless, he's getting clapped up. So my hand is on the weaker side, but not unplayable. Let's go. So I start off with Roost just because, then I normal summon Tribute Lanius and immediately get ass blasted. Luckily I have Called By, but obviously I have to finger the ass or my turn is over. I send Fuzzy to search Fuzzy, and then he pistols my Fuzzy, and here's my honest reaction to that.
We do not care.
So I special summon Fuzzy, then go into Raider's Night. Roost activates to add Glorious, and from here, it's pretty standard combo. Exceeds into Brave Strix, Search, a Skip Force, rank up to Arsenal, and then I special summon Noir, just to get more Raptors on the field. Search and special summon Pain, and then I use it and Arsenal Falcon to go into Y Strix. I special summon Strangle just cuz, and then I go into my first 4 Strix. I then use it to search into a Bloom Vulture to extend my combo. I then special summon it and Mimicry to go into my second 4 Strix. So here I detach Mimicry and search a Smorg because I don't have access to it. I banish Mimicry to search Readiness, then use Roost effect to draw into another Smorg. Okay. So here's my board setup. It's literally the exact same board as last game except with Readiness, which won't be doing much, and no hand traps. Bruh. So now let's get into how I clap this top tier meta. So he uses a Malice in the Mirror to banish a Chessie, and I'm thinking, well first, fuck, it's Malice, and I'm on budget Raid Raptor. But he's also probably bricked up if he's this down bad for a play like this. I activate Raid Raptor's Force, straight up just go into Rising Rebellion. He already used Chessie's effect to get it on field, so I know if I blow it up, he's not getting it back. Then my opponent misplays here, and special summons March Hare. I guess he didn't realize you need a Malice Engrave to activate Mirror's effect, so he's about to straight up get comboed here. Rising Rebellion hits the field, and he gets burned for over half of his life points. He doesn't have anything after that, so he ends his turn and gets burned even more for an extra 1,000, and it's already over. This is the most non-threatening face down ever because my birds are unaffected, and Ultimate Falcon can literally just turn it off. So that was GG. So I put this duel last because I thought this was the most interesting out of the bunch. I got an interesting duel going second, which is cool, so let's get into it. So right off the bat, I have the most interesting going second hand of all time, and you're about to see evenly put in work. Exactly why I put it in this deck. So he summons Bare Feet Upseas, Mommy Milkers on board. We got a branded Anime Watcher on our hands. And the Cartesia immediately tries to fusion summon. I gotta drop the Max C on him, obviously. He then summons Dust Dragon and I draw into a finger. Nice. Dust Dragon sends Ashen to Albion. Okay. And then he triple tactics, which I'm slightly worried about. Pot of Greed was banned for a reason, and that reason is that no one can figure out what it does. Anyway, he draws 2, then immediately branded fusions. So here, it's time to lock in. So now he summons a Sanctifier, which is annoying, but I don't really care about this. And then he does some branded shenanigans. He regrabs Branded Fusion and ends his turn, so let's do this, guys. So off the rip, he activates Sanctifier to summon Albaz and Golden Sword, and I think it's a bit of a misplay, but anyway, I finger the Albaz like the little twink he is.
What?
He then activates Golden Sword's effect for another white woman jump scare, and here we go. This shit seems a little unfair, and the match is about to get even. I banish his board face down. He decides to keep the Sanctifier that he already used. I use Bloom Vulture to special summon it and Tribute Lanius to send Mimicry, and then use Mimicry to get Roost. Pretty standard stuff here, so I'm going to speed this up a little. We've seen this combo before. Here's a slight misplay. I could have used Strangle's effect if I held Ultimate's material for a bit longer, but it's cool. We still win this easily. So here I go into another Strix Force until I misplay again and summon Fuzzy. And then here I realize I'm on main phase 2. So I set up everything and end my turn. Guys, I have to pause the video here because what happens next is one of the craziest things I've ever seen playing this game. One might even say that it's on-branded. He activates Branded Fusion again, I negate it, and he surrenders. That's it. That's the duel. Anyway, that wraps up the replays. I can't lie, this is probably the most boring budget deck out of the ones I've played, but it really grew on me. I think I enjoy the simplicity of the deck, but it can easily be stopped at times, and the build I'm playing had a hard time going second, with it being helped a little bit by adding Evenly. I definitely think this is a good deck for new players because of the simplicity, but the power level is definitely on the lower end of the decks I've gone over so far. If you made it this far in the video, I want to thank you personally for watching until the end. You're in the top 1% of people with a fully functioning attention span, and that's pretty impressive, not gonna lie. You watched to this point, so you might as well subscribe. It's free and it helps the channel. You could also follow me on Twitch or Kick for a better streaming experience, but I also stream on YouTube if you prefer that instead. If you want to watch more of my content, go for my salad video or my Goblin Biker video. They have memes in them just like this one, and even if you don't plan on playing them, it's still a fun watch. With all that being said, the next deck that I'm making a video on is Memento, which I'm excited to learn, so stick around for that. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.